Hi, and welcome to the second in our shorts looking at the management of temporary works. This presentation is going to cover the consequences of failure. Temporary works, if not managed properly, can fail, causing drastic impacts to a project and the people working upon them. To prevent this, we implement temporary works within a management system. This system must include a systematic approach to the methodology on how we implement the temporary works. Individual key duty holders must be appointed. They must have their roles clearly defined and who is responsible for each element of the project. The overall process must be clearly thought through and controlled from beginning to end. BS 5975 outlines this as understanding the product, people and process, which all must work together within communication, cooperation, coordination with competent people within that process. The management of temporary works must also align itself to primary and secondary legislation. When we look at primary legislation, we talk about the Health and Safety at Work Act 1979. This covers the primary statutory health and safety duties for both employees and employers. We then look at the wider legislation talking about health and safety and regulations, including CDM 15. These additional specific actions developed from EU directives and a criminal offence to contravene them. Approved code of practices are measures taken to comply with the regulations and prepared by the Health and Safety Executive and may form part of prosecution if you cannot prove how you've complied with them. We then have guidance notes, which are practical notes on how regulations can be complied and prepared and issued by the Health and Safety Executive or partners from them. From these, we should have then company level health and safety policies. These may include construction health and safety plans, but they should govern how health and safety is being conducted on site in line with the regulations stated above. So what can happen if we get this wrong? Well, it could be a major failure on site killing people, or it could be something as simple as a hoarding on the side of a site coming loose. Now, you may think this is not a major health and safety issue, but if you think about it, that has just been this one shown on screen has just been attached by single buttons to an existing fence line. When blown away, it could fall onto existing properties, it could damage vehicles, but it could also hit people who are moving past it. Securing pieces of health and safety like this on site, which are classed as temporary works, are essential to every project, no matter how big or how small. We don't just see temporary works failures or one small projects. Here you can see on the falsework construction as part of the Olympic Village in 2010, there was a failure within the structural supports for the falsework. This was due to not using current and competent personnel to construct the falsework in line with the designer's methodology. We need to make sure that we do these works in line with the designer's methodology to make sure they're safely used and safely constructed. Again though, looking at larger projects, we can get critical fails on large pieces of health and safety. Here on this 12 stories office building construction in Cardiff, you can see that the scaffolding has failed in the higher sections of it. The debris from that has fell down not just on the site, but also on the local passageways, on the nearby road and onto the rail system. And if this had happened at a busy time during the day, it could have caused a critical incident having a large death toll. The reason for this failure that the scaffold was not tied into the building in line with the designer's specifications. The number of ties into the structure were not used, and actually that the top element of the scaffold wasn't tied into the building at all. That meant that it couldn't resist the wind loads applied to the scaffold and it collapsed under loading. So how can we stop these type of failures happening on our sites? Well, specific requirements to ensure that temporary works remain fit for purpose need to be implemented. Key personalities must accept their responsibilities. Each temporary works must have an issued design brief. Temporary works must be designed and have some level of design check applied to them. They must be implemented on site and site inspections of all temporary works at various stages to make sure they comply with the designer's methodologies. Signed and recorded inspection sheets and permits to load and unload the scaffolding must be issued over the correct level of authorization. Temporary works must be maintained across their use on the site, and information must be provided and guidance for your on-site operatives in the use of that temporary works. The reverse of this must be undertaken as the temporary works are removed from site when they have completed their use. We also need to encourage key personalities within the temporary works process to communicate and cooperate throughout the project. These key personalities must be encouraged to participate between activities within their appointments. Be this the designated individual who's responsible for making sure that everyone is current and competent within the project, the designer and the design checkers for the temporary works designs and making sure that they comply with the design brief issued by the permanent works designer, the principal designer who employs both the permanent works and the temporary works designers and make sure that they're current and competent in their job roles, the principal contractors site team management to make sure they have liaised with the key principal designers and that they liaise with the site managers on site to make sure that the works are implemented as per the design. The temporary works coordinator is critical in this process in making sure that all the key players talk to each other and that the temporary works processes are implemented. The temporary works supervisors are the right-hand man of the temporary works coordinator, and they're there to make sure that the temporary works are implemented and managed on site in line with the design. All these build on knowledge and experience through the temporary works process, and we need to make sure that all the players in this process are current and competent. And this ensures that there's buy-in between all parties and that we can communicate clearly and cooperatively across the process. When we're employing key roles within the temporary works process, we need to make sure they have the following qualities. They need to have the skills for the job, the knowledge in the area they're working with, the attitude to make sure that the job is done correctly, the training and development to make sure they're still current and competent in the areas they're working with, and that they're experienced in their specific area, specifically designers and temporary works coordinators, to make sure that their works are implemented in line with present practice. In addition, designers, principal contractors, temporary works coordinators and temporary works supervisors require organisational capability necessary to fulfil their roles in a manner to secure the health and safety of all site personnel affected by the temporary works during the construction phase. This is critical to having a successful project because it makes sure that everyone talks and that the organisation is set up to enable success. So we hope you enjoyed this slight insight into why there's failures within temporary works and how we can prevent them. We advise that you discuss in your teams how you can manage temporary works and do your present processes meet the requirements from BS 5975. We hope you enjoyed this presentation and we'll see you at the next.